Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Joyride, Survival of the Fastest, which is brought to you by Rebellion Unplugged. It's for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and games usually run about 20 minutes per player. In Joyride, your goal is a simple one. Be the first player to get your car through each checkpoint and over the finish line. You can use your driver's abilities, the items you pick up en route, and your car itself to mess with your opponents, but only the fastest will win. The heart of Joyride is in the other racers. However, to be the most successful racer or player, you will need to strike a balance between finding the perfect racing line for your own car while knocking the other players off theirs. Some race for money, some for glory, and some are just here for the Joyride. So yes, this is a racing game full of all kinds of mayhem. Think Mario Kart meets Mad Max. Absolutely has that vibe as you move around the board. Now the board is double-sided. You have lots of different options for setting up the different tracks and races, and we'll get into some of that. But, you know, the fact of the matter is that if it's seeming too easy, you could add more barriers, create some choke points as you move through the game, but it is all about knocking your opponent off their line and causing damage and just moving through your gear successfully and also managing your damage as you race to the finish line. So, to set up your race, you'll consult the race guide. Now there's a series of suggested setups, but you could really set up any type of race that you want. And there are some prerequisites you need to be aware of. You have to go through gates in sequential order in order to finish your lap back to the finish line. And you will be knocked off course a lot in this game. Spun around, all kinds of things, you have to change directions. So you got to keep that in mind as you pass through the different gates. Keep track of which gates you've gone through. But you'll see for this first board, this is the tutorial, this is the training wheels, and it takes place in the junkyard. So you have the start and finish line token. You've got your gate 1 token, 2, and 3. Now, some of these tokens will have a little question mark on them, which means you'll get some loot as you pass through. So as you move through there, you get to draw a loot token and put it on your weapons on your player board. And we'll take a look at player boards in a minute. But you get all kinds of things, like you can drop mines out the back, or you can fire missiles out the front. Some really awesome effects to cause damage to your opponents for sure. And of course, there's all kinds of obstacles that can be put out on the track for you to deal with. In the case of training wheels, we just have a broken down vehicle that's out on the track, but there's lots of options. You can really start to create some choke points, force folks through a certain way as you move around the track. It really does add that nice element that you can just really enhance any of the suggestions they give you and just make it your own. Each player will choose a car. You're going to get a player board where you'll be able to shift gears on, you're going to be rolling dice to move, you're going to get weapons you can place on here, and where you'll be placing damage as you move through the game. Then below it, you're going to have some abilities. Now, there's standard abilities as well as enhanced abilities. You can't mix and match them. You got to either play with all the enhanced ones or you play with the standard ones. But they're going to give you options as you race through the game. And there's certain times that these trigger, which we'll get to. But the thing is that you have some really neat ways to control your car as you move around the board. So you have a series of dice in the color of your car, you've got your gear shift, and you've got a handy player reference guide to help guide you through when you can use those special abilities and what you're doing in your turn. And for determining player order, there is an initiative track. Now, at the start of the game, you're going to set that up randomly, but the thing is that as you go through each of the players, each round of the game, you're going to reset that, and whoever has the highest gear will be at the top, whoever has the lowest gear will be at the bottom. So there's some advantages to being first for sure. So on your turn, you have a series of actions or a sequence of actions you're going to play out, and you're going to do these in order. So first start, you should have some dice on your mirror on your player board. If you don't, you'll skip this part, but these dice, you can choose which ones you want to lock in that you're going to use on your car. So we've locked them in, like we'll take a 3 and lock it in, and we're going to move our car 3. Now you have a choice to say, I'm going to steer first, and you could do that first and then move 3. So 1, 2, 3. It's just that simple, straight up. And you can lock multiple dice in if you want, but you're coming up on a chance to re-roll dice. So maybe you don't want to use all your dice right here, right now. And then you can choose to shift. If you shift up, you gain dice. If you shift down, you lose dice. If you don't have any dice available to lose, you can't shift down, so keep that in mind. And you can also choose to do an engine brake, where you shift down 2 and you're going to lose 2 dice as well as gain 1 damage when you do that. You might have to do it in order to avoid some sort of collision or whatever's going on the board, so it might be worth it to get that damage, but again, you have to be able to lose the dice in order to perform that action. Then it's time to roll dice. Any dice that you still have on your rearview mirror, you can roll, and you're simply going to move that amount. The dice that are locked, you can't touch. So you'll roll those and move your car. Now, a couple notes around steering. If you steered in the lock phase and you're in a higher gear above 2, you cannot steer again. However, if you're in gear 2 or you didn't steer in the lock phase, you can steer around the map. So it is crucial when you choose to do that and what gear you're in as you move around the map for sure. And then you're going to just end your turn by moving all your dice back to your rear view mirror. Now, that's going to set you up for the next turn. You can't change their value. You need to hold on to their value. Also, in that roll phase, if you're in gear 1, you can choose to reverse. So that might be a tactic you use to knock someone off their line. And on your turn, you also have the option of using your driver's abilities. Again, you have an enhanced set of these if you go that route, or you have the standard, which they suggest you start with as your first games and so forth. But these are going to give you that extra nudge, that extra help through the course of driving on the track. So they're going to do various things, and they can only be used in certain phases of your turn. And once you use one of these abilities, you'll flip it over until you can recharge it. How do you recharge? Well, once you come around the map and cross the finish line, if you're the first player, you don't get to recharge any. Second player gets to recharge 1, third player gets to recharge 2, and the fourth player gets to recharge all 3. So there are advantages to not always being first around the track. And all you need to know about each of these abilities is written directly on the card, be it the advanced or be the standard. So for like precision driving, you can only use that in the lock phase. It just allows you to change one of the dice to another value so you can use it later in the next turn. And then you've got gear shifting, which as you expect, when you shift in your shifting phase, you'll be able to use that to either go up or down an extra gear and get the appropriate dice and so forth when you do that. So it just gives you that next level ability to move up quickly in gears or perhaps down if you need to. And then handbrake turn is like it sounds. You get to make a really sharp turn based on pulling that brake. So how that works is that you can use it in 2 different phases, which is nice, in the lock phase or the roll phase. But you can move 2 spaces when you turn instead of 1. It's really that simple. And everything you do on the board with moving your car, the front end always moves first and the back end follows. Also, at the end of your turn, you may have acquired some damage tokens. Not may, you probably acquired some damage tokens. So this is where you're going to assign them to your board. You can place them on the lock spots, you can place them on your weapons, or on the gear shift. Now, if you put on gears, you have to start the highest gear and move your way down. So you have some choices in how you best distribute these through the course of the race, because you will be acquiring damage for sure. Now, there are all kinds of collisions in this game, and you have a nice handy marker for this. And the biggest one, the first one we have to talk about is smash, because any of the barriers that you run into, you just smash. It's a hard stop. Your turn stops, you're going to discard all your dice, your gear shift comes off, and your next turn, you'll have to start off in gear 1. So it is definitely a detriment to hit the walls and so forth. You definitely pay the price in cutting down your speed, but sometimes it might also allow you to avoid situations if you stop early, or you're going too fast and this is a way to put on the brakes. You do get damage when this happens, but again, you'll apply this later, and you have choices where to put it. Now, the next 3 collisions are mostly about altering the path of you and your opponent's cars. Sideswipe is a big one for that. You'll hit the car, and on whatever side of the car you hit, the front or the back, it's going to rotate it off in another direction. So you probably will do this strategically through the game. And then you've got rear end, which is going to basically slow down the cars, bump forward, and still move them forward, but it's going to slow them down. And then you have the head-on, which could be just a straight-up smash, but it's up to the other driver to decide if it works out as a smash or if it is just simply a rear end effect. And then you have pileup. Pileup is an interesting one because it's going to slow everyone down if there's a huge pileup on the board. You're going to downshift 1 gear and you're going to get damage for doing this, but these are all some of the things that you're going to use to your advantage to stop your opponents and get around the board. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is loot. As you move through certain gates and certain items are dropped on the board, you're going to get these and you'll be able to apply them to your weapons and gear on your player board. So these are all going to work very differently, I should say. So you'll pull the tile and then you'll look at the information about what they are. So we've got mines. As you'd expect, you have a radius behind your car, 3 spots that you can drop a mine. If someone intersects the mine, it's going to explode, and there's a whole area of effect that will generate around that mine exploding, so other cars could take damage at the same time. And the one that I find really fun is Nitro. Nitro has an extra dice that you roll, and if you ever end up with a lightning bolt on your roll, well, then your hood explodes and you're gonna take damage, you'll downshift and all that. But these cards are very self-explanatory. They tell exactly what you're doing with different gear and items. And then we've got oil slicks. Like it sounds, cars are gonna be sliding. How you steer is gonna be very affected by an oil slick if you hit it. And then we have rockets, which is my favorite. Shooting rockets off the front, you have that radius in front of your car, and the rockets explode with a radius effect as well. So it could generate damage from multiple cars. However, no car can take more than 1 point of damage when this happens. So acquiring this extra gear, the rockets, the mines, the oil slicks, or the turbo is really gonna aid you in winning the race for sure. So acquiring that is key, and at times you may have to make some choices about swapping out to a new item. And you know, if areas of your board become damaged, you can't put more out there, that's also going to be a challenge. And between the gear, using your driver's abilities, and using collisions to your advantage will really help you win the race. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview. Everything you've seen has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, this game really has that fast-paced feel, and like I said at the top of the video, it definitely is Mario Kart meets Mad Max. You are moving around the board and you really are impacting what everyone is doing, however they're doing the same to you. So you have this almost smash-up derby thing going on as well. And you know, you can take maximum amount of damage and still be in the race, which is really great. You're not eliminated. And it does play very quickly, and based on how many laps you want to play, you can determine how long your game length really is, and how many roadblocks you have in play, how much debris is out on the board. Just is going to change up how you play each time. Lots of different map options. They have several options in the campaign to check out, 2-player, 4-player, all kinds of fun things going on. So, but folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it from me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.